But before we come to that, we'll talk about the next possible election. But can you tell me about the current political status of the opposition? Now, as a member of the SJB, I'm very open, I'm a SJB voter myself. How do you see the political status of the opposition right now, given the protest march that we just saw? And I mean, there's different takes on it, right? The one narrative is that it was a complete failure. The other narrative is that it got the word about being against the PTA. That was quite successful. Everyone was talking about the PTA. It was on social media, all of that. So can you give us a bit of some inside information on the protest march, as well as how you see the SJB right now?
Yeah, Kusum, first with the protest march, it was actually organized by the trade unions.
Right.
It was not a protest march that was organized by the SJB.
Right.
The trade unions actually came and requested the opposition leader to support this, and their demands were to take out the PTA and release their people who were being held under the PTA and the emergency law and those things. And and I think the opposition leader thought these were fair decisions and fair demands to be made, and so that is why he decided that the SJB should get behind this, because we do need a unified opposition in a country, because especially when there is a government that is maybe legal but not legitimate, there should be a unified opposition. There is no point us breaking into camps and doing our own thing, just aiming just our next election like some other parties are doing. So we wanted to support the unified struggle, and there were different people with different opinions over there. But see, our opinion is, yes, the PTA has to be taken out, and we are against this whole rehabilitation bill that they are trying to bring in,
very important.
And we believe that we should go in for an election, because as I told you, this government might be legal, but it's not legitimate.
Right.
People do not believe that they don't believe that the president should be there. They don't believe that the current ministers should be there, because last May, when that whole big protests were going on, those were not solely against Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It was against a whole corrupt system and a whole corrupt cabinet. And what we see today is the only thing that has changed is the president. And I personally believe we got it wrong there, because I think out of that whole family, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa might be the least corrupt person. So he should have been the last person to go, not the first person to go. So I think, not because we want an election, it will be really hard because financially we are not doing well. So it's not for our sake that we are asking for an election. We are asking because I think that's the only way this country can come out of this mess. See, getting the bridging finances that we need to move out of this economic rut, and the only way that will happen is when there is a legitimate government. No foreign entity is going to come and support us when there is no legitimate government. You wouldn't give your money, right? So the only way, see, now we get this news alert, every couple of days saying, our peace are, our talks are being held with the IMF. We are talking with the World Bank, but we are not seeing any results. Right, and the reason is the IMF has asked that get political stability. You cannot get political stability as long as the people don't trust in the system or trust in their leaders. So you need to do away with that. And they are talking about human rights, and they are talking about the PTA as well. So as long as these things are there, we are not going to get that finances that we need. Only thing that we keep getting is aid to get food, emergency aid. That's not going to make a difference. That's just going to keep us barely fed and barely clothed, and with the minimum amount of medicine that we need. That's all that's going to happen.
If I can just ask you, Anuradha, about the SJB specifically. There was some, I think, polling done recently by the Institute for Health Policy, and they have a quite large segment and sample size. So they saw obviously the plunge in the popularity of the Pohottuwa and the Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the government. But the problem is that they had seen an uptick in the JVP, right? An uptick in the NPP. And there hasn't been, now in the UK for instance, it's very clear that the Conservatives in the United Kingdom completely lost the people's trust, and that's shown in the polling. And what happens is then the Labour Party has taken up that. So the Labour Party has ticked up several points, up to 40-50% approval. We haven't seen that with the SJB. We haven't seen that uptick. So they haven't been able to take advantage of the unpopularity of the government. So how do you go about, so Mr. Sajith Premadasa is also is a politician that takes his share of criticism. He's also from, let's say, his father was a president, so there's some part of the Aragala that was also about, all 225, and they try to equate even Sajith Premadasa and the SJB to the same corrupt establishment. Can you push back against that sort of criticism while also giving us, because you've worked both under Ranil Wickremesinghe and Sajith Premadasa to varying degrees, so you'll also be able to give us some personal insight into what it's like to work for them, while also telling us, like, why do you think the SJB and Sajith Premadasa haven't been able to take advantage of the drop in popularity of, or do you think they have?
No, the thing is, Kusum, I think there is still a huge segment of the voters that are undecided. Right? They still haven't decided which way they, and I think that's over 50% at this time. So that come election time, I think they will make a decision. But the reason that we haven't been able to capture that market successfully, I think not a bad thing, but I think it lies on the way Mr. Sajith Premadasa likes to do things. He is someone who likes to listen to everyone. He's highly knowledgeable and he does not behave like a dictator. And more than any of that, he believes that doing the right thing will, at the end of the day, have will actually get the right result out. But I don't know, this is like a bit of a criticism I have about him. See, we have seen so far in this country, doing the right thing has not really always worked well for those people. See, during the Rajapaksa campaign, they do a lot of information, and bigger than that, they have a huge disinformation campaigns going on. They have social media teams that are actually feeding the people with lies and doctored truths. And that has worked really well. But and this is something I always tell even in our working committee, that maybe we need to play politics instead of doing the right thing. But Mr. Premadasa's opinion is, let's point our energy towards doing the right thing. You see, with the Sakkula program, he has given, I think, almost 50 buses and I think 40 odd smart classrooms. Then I think almost 200 million rupees worth of medical equipment to hospitals, and these are being done without having power, and this is from our personal donors that we should, that's actually supporting our party. But if we took that money and did what the Rajapaksas did, and have maybe 100, 200, a team of 100, 200 people, full, always on social media and pushing that SJB narrative and lifting Sajith Premadasa up and bringing everyone down, and because even the JVP is doing this. You haven't seen any welfare programs that the JVP has done, but look at their meetings. They are doing massive meetings, and each one of those cost about 4-5 million each. Right? And we are not doing any of that.
May I ask you, Anuradha, do you think, you are UNP under Ranil Wickremesinghe, do you think, in your opinion, that Sajith Premadasa has the same level of support as Ranil Wickremesinghe had as at the UNP? Does he have that support of the SJB backbenchers and the SJB frontbenchers? Do you think he's got the unstinting?
Yes,
do you think so?
Yes, he does. the thing is, the only difference is, he doesn't rule with an iron fist.
Right.
He likes to listen to people, and he likes to sometimes, even against his best judgment, he likes to go with the main consensus of the party. Like,
Right.
best example, when that election inside the parliament was being held
Okay.
between Dulles and Ranil and
Yes.
then Sajith, and that whole mess was going on.
What did you think about that?
I thought that our leader should contest. And I actually called him. I called him and said, boss, there is no way you are going to win this, because there's still about 140 SLPP members who is only going to think of their benefit. They are going to think of their next election, because they know if you become president, straight away come March you are going to go in for an election, and out of that 140, maybe less than 40 will make it into parliament, and then they are not going to want that. And I said, boss, you are going to definitely lose, but to maintain face, you need to contest, right? I said, you are definitely losing. And he was like, Anuradha, I know this, and that is the opinion I am in as well. And but he convened the parliamentary committee. Majority of the parliamentary committee is, let's beat Ranil Wickremesinghe one way or the other. Let's if you have to take a step back, because Mr. Dalasaperum was adamant on wanting to contest. And sometimes you need to take a step back. I understand that, but at that time it was a given that we were not going to win. And most these the breakaways from SLPP that we see today, like the SLFP fraction and all that, mark my words, come the time they will be back on that, because it's all an act, right? So, and that is where he was. And then he got all the organizers, SJB organizers in the country. It was on a Zoom call. I was part of that. I think out of 160, I think about 140 odd organizers were there. And I think there was, except 2 or 3 voices, all the organizers were like, no, take a step back. If Dulles is being adamant, let him contest. You take a step back. That was the opinion.
So
and
he took the party's opinion.
Yes, he took the public consensus, and that was not his opinion. He knew that he should contest. So that's why I think that it's really wrong to say this Asai Bhai thing to him, because he has never done that. And I know that was a bad decision, but that bad decision is because of the consensus of the party, not his. So sometimes it's a little bit
the
too
Asai
democratic.
Bhai thing is an interesting critique, because I mean, it's difficult to say Asai Bhai when you leave your main party at the election, and you sort of, Ranil Wickremesinghe's UNP was decimated in that election, right? The SJB completely cleaned up, so it's hard to say Asai Bhai when he took that decision. But now it's sort of, how do you feel about the decision he took regarding the prime ministership? Do you feel at the time he should have taken it? With hindsight, do you think he should have taken it?
No. I still think the decision he made was
decision,
right, because I knew the negotiations that were going on. The SJB was offered the premiership, then 4 cabinet portfolios out of 20, where the president is again the head of the cabinet, and so that would mean 15 from SLPP, and Gotabaya Rajapaksa being the head of the cabinet, and we would have had the premiership and 4 cabinet portfolios. Basically, our job would have been to put a rubber seal on whatever they were doing. And if that had happened, I swear to you, Gotabaya Rajapaksa would still be president if we had taken that. If Sajith Premadasa had become the prime minister, Gotabaya wouldn't have been chased. That massive rally would not have happened. Because let's take Aragale, like JVP is trying to take credit for it, but at the end of the day, 90% of the people were SJB and UMP supporters. That's why like when they attacked Sajith Premadasa on that day at the Aragala grounds, right after that they couldn't even feed themselves. They lost all their support. They could not sustain it, and like that shows all the support was coming from
That's a very interesting point, Anuradha, because Noel has actually made that point. Everyone sees that as a turning point in the Aragale, but not in that reason. So that's an interesting way of looking at it.